Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Twisted Sisters event in which the Green Hag is added to the game. So this also starts the 27th campaign of the Altar of Malice. This ends up bringing in the new Poison Gem that works kind of like the Burn Gem, and that is a green gem that when taken will poison all enemies. This also has a interesting implication in that it can also of course poison your allies, which is normally a bad thing when you end up, creating a power gem and then that effect ends up affecting your allies negatively. However, poison can actually be used as a positive stats effect occasionally, mostly because it's doing true damage to you directly, while also be able to go and proc abilities that can, trigger whenever you end up taking HP damage. So similar to the bleed gem, you can end up getting that for additional procs on those corresponding troops. Beyond that, they also seem to have, I'm not sure this is the first time that they've done this, but I don't recall this actually being a thing in the past. Whenever the faction troop, whenever one of the old faction troops ends up coming in, it seems like they're doing an exclusive week now, or a couple weeks, whatever this is. It looks like almost like 2 weeks, that you'll be able to go and directly target them if you want to go and get it upgraded. This is rather interesting because I personally skipped the weekend faction event just because we already have, so much progress overall. So I kind of want to test this because I believe this is actually something relatively new from the most recent patch, and I believe this is the first time it happened, unless it happened another time I just didn't notice. So of course this is the Primal Rift. We had this, a couple weeks ago, pretty recently, but now it is the exclusive drop for like the next 2 weeks in this portal. So if I just open one, is this going to be it, or are we going to get the other things? Is it lying to me? Or is it meaning it's the only exclusive epic so that you would only get that epic? Is that what it's referring to? We end up getting the Vine. I don't think I've seen the other epic yet, so maybe that's what it's referring to. It's not the exclusive drop, but whenever you get an epic, instead of getting the other epic, you will only get the new one. So I've noticed I haven't gotten the other epic yet, so that must be what it's referring to then, as there is normally multiple epics in the drop table, and if they keep adding more, there's going to eventually, currently every single one is getting up to, like 2 and eventually 3. So I guess they're doing this mechanic to make it so you will always get the new one. So as you can see here, we got another epic. We still haven't seen the other one, so that seems to be the case. It's not the only drop in the drop table, but whenever you get specifically an epic drop, which are competing with multiple other drops, you will specifically get the, the more recent one. So if you do end up skipping it or don't end up maxing it and don't want to use a blue orb on it, or for whatever reason, or just have the shards laying around, yeah, it seems like this is the only epic we can get. And for when areas start to get, like 2, 3, eventually even 4 of the epics within a single category, then it'll be a lot easier to go and target them down, at least for that short duration after the fact, if you did not already get them from the event. So they're basically doing this for people that don't max it out during the event, or even just skip doing the event, like us, for example. And it would make it easier to go and then max it out, or even just get your 1 copy if you want in the future. But yeah, it does say specifically epic, so whenever they start getting multiple epics, like they have been every single location, there'll be a short duration, in this case looks like about 2 weeks or so, that you'll be able to go target it directly. So if you didn't end up getting this from the most recent faction event in the last month or so, you can go and target that out for the next 2 weeks or so, if you just want to get your copy, or you just go ahead all the way max without needing any blue orbs, saving them for other things. So both options are available. So this basically makes it so the whole rarity is just whatever it is. So for example, let's go to, just all CNI, doesn't really matter location, but if we go to the rarity screen right here, whatever this is, that would be the full odds that you would end up getting. Not that, over here. So normally, of course, there is, 6.05%, sorry, Dutch Treasure. There is a 6% chance or so that you would end up getting an epic, but this epic, of course, is competing for every epic in the location. So if there's 3 epic, that's only a 2% chance or so. But whenever it's like it is right now for Primal Rift, it would be the full 6% that you would end up getting the correct epic trip they end up needing. So that's kind of nice. Not really too big a deal, but for anyone kind of in that category where we're kind of skipping weekend faction events if you already have everything max, or, the trip's just not as good, or you just don't want to bother with it on a given weekend, it is now a lot more targetable to be able to get them without having to spend nearly as many chaos shards as you previously needed to, as long as you do it in the allocated time, which is right now for this one until March 6th from Primal Rift. So yeah, that's cool. Since we're going over side things before we go into the teams, of course, let's get into the nice campaign. As far as the campaign is concerned, it's going on, of course, for the next 10 weeks. As far as the main rewards that we end up getting, actually, I didn't check the weapon yet. Where even is the weapon? Are you the weapon? Yeah, here it is. Create 10 poison gems, aka 10 green gems. It's a brown-blue weapon, and it inflicts 1 to 2 random stats effects on all enemies. It's not awful. It's not great. If this was green, it would matter more, which the glory troop this week actually is pretty good. It's a poison gem crater that feeds back into itself with a convert. But the fact that this doesn't use green makes this pretty underwhelming because you'd have to feed into something that uses green that then can feed back into this. The one to do random stats effects kind of interesting though, because of course obviously you're 4 times poisoning the enemy team. Well, on top of that, you could get up to 2 additional random stats effects on all enemies. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't really use this over something like Essence of Evil from the exact same kingdom. So, you know, it's kind of competing with Essence of Evil. If you have to pick one or the other, you're probably picking Essence of Evil in almost every situation unless you really need discoloration. But for the most part, it's not awful. It's just, unless it gets like some kind of absurd extra effect, doesn't look that enticing over just running an Essence of Evil onto the team. But of course, the most noteworthy one is the Mythic that ends up coming in more towards the average side, but it can be usable. Its traits are where it mostly shines. Its ability is more towards average, but keep in mind it will be getting shininess, so it will be doing quite a bit more damage. I'm not sure if it's getting an extra hit or triple damage, but it reminds me a lot of that one Burning Mythic. What is it, Baphomet? That had the multi-hit burning that then ended up getting the extra multiplier on it and everything. It seems like it's going to be one of those kind of situations, except this time on a Mythic, where it does a bunch of damage to 4 enemies boosted by poison gems, and if an enemy is poisoned, it'll deal double damage, which is very likely given that taking a singular poison gem will 4 times poison the opposing team, assuming they can be poisoned. So this is going to be very easy to get them poisoned, be able to do double damage, and what I don't know is I'm not sure what the shiny bonus is. It's either going to be triple damage, which I assume is what it is, or it would end up being hit 5 enemies. Honestly, triple damage would be a lot better in most situations, so we'll see exactly which one that ends up ultimately doing, but hopefully triple damage, as that would be quite a bit more beneficial. Trait-wise, not that bad. It actually reminds me a lot of, I kind of compared the last one to it too, but this one almost feels even more so. It feels like a physical damage Tina 9000. So this one, of course, the other one last time was like 25% spell reduction with a bunch of life gain, so it was kind of like Tina 9000. But this one, even more so. It has Impervious, so even more immune. 50% spell reduction, so, you know, same reduction amount. You don't end up gaining any durability, but you do have a very solid damage, and while it's not true damage, the amount of damage you do get onto poison enemies, depending on your damage range, you might be one-shotting with this ability, which is pretty strong. And of course, it gets to pretty cleanly 4 times poison the enemy team, also creating 1 green gem that would feed into itself. But yeah, definitely usable. Very situational as far as when you'd bring it out. Definitely good for Darkstone, Fane, Mystic, if nothing else. But as far as, you know, on a general team, you're probably not going to need this too often unless you're going really heavy on Poison Synergy. Like if you're building like a perfect Poison Synergy kind of team. But otherwise, yeah, it's a perfectly fine damage source. And with all the extra shininess that will get, bringing it down to 22, making its damage likely even stronger. Yeah, it's definitely not bad. And is definitely a very usable Mythic on the stronger half, but still not in like the top like 5 or 10% of Mythics, but very solid if you need like a impervious spell reduction trip that still does damage. So if you kind of need that, something in that category, which in the past you would use like Tina 9000 or something, but now you have another option that you can end up putting in there that's decently viable. So that's pretty much the main thing that ends up coming in through the current campaign. As far as the teams, let's start getting into all the teams for the week then. So we'll start all the way from the top, starting with the raid event. As far as the raid event is concerned this week, it is specifically a Darkstone, so you're allowed to use any weapons and troops from Darkstone. Do keep in mind, of course, you do have to end up using the troop to end up having double magic and score for the week, so definitely make sure to do so. It doesn't need to be upgraded to get the double score, but of course, to be able to fully utilize the double magic and all of its extra multiplication on its damage, you do generally end up wanting to go and end up getting it max, so it is not required for the double score. As far as the troop itself, it doesn't really do anything too special. This has a little bit of a poison gem boost ratio that isn't really worth building around, but it does get to curse and bleed all other enemies, so it does get to do a lot of curse onto basically the remaining team, because obviously you're generally going to be targeting the raid boss first, and that'll end up killing it out, and then it will get the effect onto, you know, the rest of the team, and then you can kind of go from there. As far as that's what I want to go check. As far as the weapon, they've been starting to do this new weird kind of weapon recently as far as these events. And I think they've been doing this kind of because of Guild War and some other restrictions, because a lot of places don't really have a good way to cleanse. And one weapon they've been starting to add for a couple locations now, and it seems like they might get around to adding it everywhere, is something like this. It gives a bunch of attack and life to all of a given kingdom's type, so in this case Darkstone, and then it blesses all of them. Bless being pretty relevant because if you're not cursed, of course, that will also end up cleansing, so you can get rid of freeze, you can get rid of burn, you can get rid of entangle, you can get rid of everything elementals does, as well as everything other than curse. You would have to do it twice to be able to also get rid of curse, or, you know, initially gets rid of curse, cancels out, and then it will do the cleansing. But as long as you're not cursed, it will get rid of absolutely every negative stats effect then. And while this weapon isn't that good, if it is your only means of cleansing within a kingdom and you have to use this for, I don't know, let's say a Darkstone Guild War event, This would be really good to use in those situations. Very niche when you'd bring it out, but this will hopefully fill all the holes in kingdoms that basically don't have a good cleanse option, and also give some instances where you wouldn't necessarily need Wand of Stars. Though realistically, if you are allowed to use Wand of Stars, you're still using Wand of Stars if you need a bless like that. But this mostly just helps all the kingdoms that don't really have a way of cleansing, or don't really have that many way of cleansing, so you can do it off a hero. So yeah, this will be pretty nice in the future to see exactly how this ends up panning out if every single kingdom ends up getting one, as there are quite a few holes and quite a few kingdoms that have no means at all of cleansing or blessing, which is very problematic when they come up for Guild War and other similar things where you're restricted and have to go up against Elemental as hero class and other similar things that just spam, negative stats effects. So great to see those weapons rolling in, and yet another one for the pile. And I assume they'll keep rolling those out for quite a while, maybe until every single kingdom ends up having one. Anyways, teams, let's keep going. So, raid event teams, as far as our higher level team, of course, all the Darkstone weapons are in Soulforge this week, as it is a Darkstone event week, as well as at the end of the campaign. We'll also be getting a Darkstone event week. But as far as this, just ends up having a bunch of mana accumulation into resummon. You can use Essence of Evil instead. This is mostly just for the backup resummon if you end up needing it. Thrall does a bunch of mana accumulation with his Mass Destroy. If you have enough magic, it'll literally destroy the full board for 100% mana. We're also having extra purple ink. We're using Twisted Hag because we have to. It's for double score, but we're also going to be using this to one-shot the raid troop. It is currently full mana blocked, but you're going to be getting so much excess mana from Thrall that it's technically not mana blocked at all, as your two other mana accumulators will, of course, eventually feed down into it. And then we end up having the Nebula Dragon. If you end up having this, it is a very high amount of damage. Ends up hitting upwards of 200 in this situation. One thing that's really nice about it is when using a pure Darkstone team, you will get a ton of magic for running 4 times Darkstone from the extra bonus, and this is increased even more depending on how upgraded you have the kingdom. That's one of the reasons why this bonus is actually so high. If you have upgraded your magic kingdom of Darkstone, it will not only, of course, give you permanent magic bonuses, but it also increases, based on that team bonus, how much you get when using a 3 times and 4 time Darkstone team, which is a pretty substantial amount of magic, which of course is what's making Nebula Dragon's damage do to such a high amount, over 200 in this particular situation, which of course helps everything else too, like a Thrall be able to hit the 64 threshold, as well as making it easier for your Twisted Hag to be able to land its one shot from its up to 5 times damage and double magic that it has on the boss troop, allowing it to one shot for a much longer range than it otherwise would. With that being said, you're pretty much guaranteed going to be wanting to run Plaguelord hero class for both the raid event this week, for Underspire this week, and potentially even in general, as does have 10% extra stats. Unfortunately, not 20, but does have 10. With that being said, display hero class is actually pretty good. You tend to not use it that often because there are so many things competing in the barrier on brown hero class category, and this thing is mostly just a spell reduction alternative. It is 20% spell reduction while having disease on trait. So that's basically its main gimmick that it has, is it has a disease to make sure they get less mana, but it also has, spell reduction, so if they do end up hitting you, they won't be hitting you as hard, if they even hit you at all, because you have barrier on brown, of course. So it's not used as often, very situational when you end up bringing it out, but for a week like this, it is pretty much good the entire week for almost every event, as well as just in general for the 10% stats if you want to utilize it. But the team bonuses that you can get with it this week for 4 times Darkstone, very solid. Even if you don't have the kingdom as upgraded, you'll still be getting some amount of stats, but if you do have it fully maxed or almost maxed, the amount of magic is going to speed up a lot of game modes this week where you're already restricted pretty much to pure Darkstone, so might as well go all the way. As far as a lower rarity team, we do not have that many good damage sources, unfortunately, for lower rarity for Darkstone. It is definitely something that, if you're building a Darkstone team, you're going to want to try to slot in some higher level stuff. Maybe try for them in event keys this week, or just try to scrap together like some kind of Essence of Evil team. Realistically, as long as you have Essence of Evil, which you get from 250 wins on the Plaguelord hero class, which if you haven't done that yet, highly advise doing that this week, given that it's a really good hero class to be using anyways. But you get it from 250 wins on this hero class, or you could buy it from the Thursday class event, though way easier just getting the 250 kills. And in doing so, it's a really good weapon. You probably see this a lot during Guild Wars, as well as sometimes just in general, but inflicts all negative status effects onto an enemy, and of course this keeps getting buffed anytime they ever add a new negative status effect to the game, most recently being, Terror, I think was the most recent one? I don't think there's been another more recent one since then. Power Drum-wise there has been, but actual status effects, I think that's the most recent new one. But it also gets to explode a bunch of their mana colors, so almost gets the full board clear as well, while inflicting every single negative effect. It also has a 10% chance if you happen to not end up hitting the first slot, well actually always, but ideally if you don't end up hitting the first slot, that it will also have a 10% chance to transform the first slot into a toad, which is not that great, but you basically get to, or not that common, but you basically get to disable out 2 enemies when that ends up occurring. You end up making their first slot become a toad, and if you targeted the second, third, or fourth slot, or anything that isn't their first, you'll end up getting the full disable on one, while getting the 10% toad on the first slot. So you generally want to hit not first slot more often than not with this weapon. It would make sense to kind of do it just because of entangle and everything, but 1 out of 10 times you kind of get messed up a little bit with with the resummon, so you normally want to try not to hit in first slot unless it's really important on the given battle to do so. But otherwise, yeah, sometimes you can just disable out 2 enemies and you're just good to go. And we're just using Anointed One to gain a bunch of attack here, and obviously Twisted Hag to go kill out, and Thrall as what Thrall normally does is mass mana accumulation for any team it's ever plopped on. As far as the faction event is for All Seeing Eye this week, which has what, 6 faction troops now, 3 epics, starting to get pretty high, which is why they're doing that targetable epic thing, so it'll be easier to go and get them in the future. But as far as the faction event, I believe it's actually the same 2 teams as last week, oddly enough, as is green-blue restriction. You're allowed to use any colored hero weapon. So for this, we're allowed to use just standard quick heal Rowain team, using a Leprechaun to get a bunch of mana accumulation into the Rowain that you get for free from Forest of Thorns Kingdom, Mirage Queen, which you get from Thorin Chaos Shards at Sunken Fleet for the 50% mana start to all elemental, and then just using any weapon that doesn't block Rowain in order to just go and quick kill the enemy team for the lower level range. For the higher level range, we're just using a standard Leprechaun and the Wand of Stars into whatever 2 damage sources you wish. In this case, we're using 2 insta-kills of Maelstrom, Dagannoth, and Zolgoth. Of course, we most recently got a Power Orb the other week from the Lunar New Year event. Another one should be coming for Easter in about a month or so, month and a half. So if you haven't gotten your Maelstrom Dagannoth from last year or any of the other Power Orb mythics, really great to be running for things like Underspire. Just get a bunch of mana accumulation and then go for your double, single, insta-kill troops and just kill out very quickly. As far as Pure Faction is concerned, this is one of the weirdest Pure Factions in that it is really, really, really good. A lot of other Pure Factions don't really have as much synergy with each other, and often you'll end up doubling up, tripling up, in some instances even quadrupling up on the legendary from the location, as the 4 unique troops don't really have as much synergy. But despite this place having the tied highest amount of any faction with, 6 faction troops, as well as everything else that has happened, you still literally just 1-to-1 copy the Pure Faction team from this location. I wish more Pure Factions were like this, where the most optimal team is literally, you know, like what you would think it would be, like the 4 starting troops that the place ended up coming with. There are just so many locations, aka every single one, like what is there now, 38 now? So like 37 of them, where you don't do this at all, where it is always viable to double, triple, quad up on the legend, where you always switch out like something in order to make the team stronger. But this is the only location where the actual strongest thing to do, despite there being 6 faction troops, the strongest thing to do is still just to run exactly what the Pure Faction team is. You run the banner for the location, and you run the 4 troops in the exact order that the final battle is. In this case, a Clarion Leech. This ends up building up and giving mana accumulation as well as steal an attack. You need this as well to be able to steal back the enemy's attack, because they can also steal from you, of course. You need this Clarion Leech, not because its effect is particularly good, but because on the first and final battle, you're going to have to deal with the enemy having the brown to green convert. So you have to have one on your team in order to counter the enemy's version of the brown to green convert. Watch Mother is probably the most replaceable thing on this team. However, it does have a few pretty good utilities that ends up running. For one, it ends up having Greenstorm if you end up needing to resummon, which it does on its ability. It is resummon, so if you happen to just get nuked down on your Clarion Leech, has a 50% chance to resummon it specifically. Otherwise, you'll just get a second Clarion, but you can just keep having your first slot die until you replace it back to an Clarion Leech if it does happen to die. But even if you don't end up having anything die, it gives a ton of life, so you can get something outside of kill range. So if something's about to die in 1 more skull or 1 more hit of any kind, you can go and heal them a little bit to get them out of the death range, so you can then have a little bit more time to go and win with. And beyond that, you of course would have to use the legend, as you pretty much do for every location. It's just a lot of damage, end up dealing a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies. But the reason why you normally also have to use it is the enemy on the final battle will also have this troop. And because of that, you need to deny the enemy's Yell to Skulls so that you can get value for it. The same reason why you have to use a Clarion. Got to use a Clarion to deny their brown to green, and you got to use X-Raider to deny their Yell to Skull. Otherwise, they're just going to get value from it, and if you don't have the option, then you won't be able to deny it. So yeah, you basically just 1-to-1 copy the final team. It's the only location you do that for. And I wish more Pure Factions were like that, because the synergy in that location is so absurdly good. Everything about it just has perfect synergy. And it's something I thought more factions would have, and because they started with that one, and then they never did. It's the only one that ever got that amazingly of a synergy. Not that the other places don't. It's just All Seeing Eye has always been like the prime example of the best one, and they never really did it again after that for some reason. Anyways, as far as Plaguelord Class, all you really have to do for this is use whatever your best weapon is that doesn't block Thrall ideally, and then spam Thrall to go give it a ton of mana. You could use a purple weapon if you want. If you do, you probably want to go and use Thrall in first slot. If you're using like Black Managle or that new one from the Evil Dragons or anything like that, even just any purple weapon, move it back by 1 so that your Thrall gets the mana first. But otherwise, yeah, just use whatever your biggest weapon is. If it doesn't block Thrall, use in the first slot. If it does block Thrall, use in the second, and just use whatever strongest weapon you have that hits all enemies. As far as Underspire is concerned, the Underspire ends up getting the... oh yeah, we finally get to show the Hag. So Underspire, of course, is Dark Stone restriction. As we mentioned earlier, you end up getting a ton of magic and other stats from this, most notably magic. But I don't see, actually pretty even along the board. But a lot of magic relative to what you would normally get from a location. With that being said, of course, you have really high damage on anything that can hit all enemies simultaneously, especially if they gain better boost ratio from their magic stat, like Nebula Dragon does, where it's like a 3 point something. No, it's like a 2.8, 2.7? I forget the exact number, but it's pretty high. It's like a 2 point something, like mid 2 point something. But we're using Essence of Evil just for safety, get all those negative stats effects. You could use the other mana accumulator weapon, but since it full mana blocks Hag, I kind of want to keep her open a little bit. Thrall, for everything Thrall normally does is click him and get infinite mana. Green Hag is the new one. I don't think we went over her yet. She is available for Glory this week. Unfortunately, she is not shinyable, otherwise she'd be the most broken thing ever. However, she is really good. Like really, really good. She converts all green gems to a chosen color to poison gems. This, in theory, is kind of average. But the thing that makes this solid is she uses green. Of course, there are a lot of troops in this category from about 10 to 12 mana cost that end up converting a gem to a color while having some kind of additional effect. Like, let's say, for example, the same color, I believe Apothecary's 10 mana cost and converts brown with cleanse. But she is brown, or, you know, she's green and blue. She doesn't feed brown back into herself. The main thing that makes this really interesting is poison gems are green, and she is green, meaning that whenever you cast this, you will get all of your mana back, assuming, you know, something else isn't blocking. Like in this case, you know, obviously Essence of Evil could end up blocking it, but that just gives mana as well, so it doesn't really matter as much. But, you know, if she's not blocked, you're not only getting all of her mana back, but also feeding into everything else below that, of course, uses green mana. While also obviously getting 4 times poison, though. That's like the least relevant part. And the other interesting thing is what his extra effect is. So instead of Cleanse or Souls, like Valkyrie and a few other ones out there, this ends up eliminating a bunch of points from a random skill from a random enemy. This is rather interesting. Obviously, you get no control over this. However, magic is a random skill. So 1 out of 16 times you'll end up hitting the enemy magic of the specific unit you need. Because of course, if there's 4 enemies on a team and you have a 1 in 4, it's a 1 in 16 that you would eliminate the magic of the most useful thing on the opposing team. This might sound bad, 1 in 16 that would hit the right one, but of course it's 1 in 4 that would do it on any enemy. And you have to keep in mind, this is really spammable. If you're not frozen on green, you should be able to get at least a few casts off, especially if you have other things on your team that have like auto extra turn green or just ways to kind of control the board. You can get a lot of extra turns, at least like 3, maybe 5, potentially even more depending on how the board goes. And every single time, that is a 1 in 4 chance that something on the opposing team will basically lose all of their magic. Of course, this also means they could lose all their attack. It could also mean you could actually do some damage and hit their HP. And if you hit that like, you know, 2 or 3 times, depending on what you're doing, potentially even once if you have enough disparity between the enemy, you would just few shot them with the HP damage too. So this is really interesting as far as the implications of what this can do in the future. And it's actually really, really strong, like top 10%. Not like top 1 or 5, but, you know, definitely like the lower end of top 10. It is a really good mana accumulator and highly advise getting her for 400 glory this week and completely maxing her out. Unfortunately, her traits are kind of useless. That's the main thing holding her back. Like when you compare this to something like Pharaoh, which, you know, has like absurdly better traits than this, because he's another one that creates brown that feeds it back into himself as a brown with a converter. But she does it for only 12 mana, which is really good. Actually, this might be the only one of this low of a mana cost that actually does this. Because now that I'm thinking of it, I don't think of one off the top of my head. Like something that has convert into its color that you can always keep spamming over and over again. Because I know Pharaoh has it, and I think there might be 1 or 2 others, but I don't think any of them were this low of a rarity with this low of a mana cost, which is kind of cool. Though obviously Pharaoh is still better in most situations, mostly because his final trait. Biggest thing holding her back is she is an epic, so she has no unique final trait, and her other traits are pretty average. Just gets to lower the skills a little bit and just has her masteries, which is very little unless you have 2 or 3 of them on a team. So plus most mana accumulation is even done off of 3 surges these days. So these traits not really doing that much, but at least her ability is really, really, really strong. And that's what you would end up running for the higher rarity team. As far as the lower rarity team, you run pretty much the exact same thing, with the main thing being just scrap together whatever damage source you can. In this case, we're using Exorator, even though we're mostly primarily using Essence of Evil, but this is to help clean up things a little bit quicker. If you do have a better option, obviously use that better option if you have any mythic from the location. However, a lot of the mythics, of course, are pretty rare or from the dragon drop table. So for the most part, if you don't end up having one of those, you might have to focus a little bit more on Essence of Evil and just have something else that uses green that can just poke them. Basically, whatever your best green damage sources that you have within the kingdom. And of course, we do have Bounty Hunter this weekend as far as the new bounty troop. I think I have it open right over here. Should be this one. A little bit down, we can see the new bounty troop. We are getting the Cave Mole. It destroys a column and deals a bunch of damage to the last enemy, boosted by purple gems, destroyed at a boost ratio that doesn't say here, and I'm not going to bother checking the third-party thing. But for the most part, yeah, you're basically never really going to be needing to use this. It doesn't do enough mana accumulation off of Ogress Warrior to really justify using it. It does get to have an interesting effect with like skull-related teams, though. It does have Bloodlust, so you'll be able to get it enraged whenever you end up getting a kill. So you'll be able to hit through their traits, do a lot of damage. It also has 50% score reduction, so it actually can be a pretty viable first slot option. But if you were to choose either Ogress or this, I would go Ogress pretty much every time. Maybe if you just want to mess around with a skull version of a bounty team, this does bring it one step closer to being viable, if nothing else. However, I still feel like it is not fully viable yet to run Skull over, you know, just true damage cast spam. And of course, if you're just running a triple team, you would still end up running Ogress as well, which is like the Gremlin or whatever else for a bunch more mana accumulation, feeding into Flower Dragon, Stellaryx, or whatever your best damage source is. With that being said, of course, as far as the higher rarity team, or the quick kill team, this is only for 3 times points, but it gets the event done in like an hour or less. This is Ogress Warrior, Forest Gremlin, and whatever your best damage source is that uses green. Ogress Warrior does a bunch of mana accumulation, as well as is really tanky, have a 50% score reduction, and a resummon of a really tanky troop that also has Impervious, which ends up working out really well. We end up having a Perpetual Green Storm here off of, or not Perpetual, but it gets to start at the battle. And if you win within 4 turns, I guess it's technically Perpetual, but for the first 4 turns, as long as the enemy doesn't have a counter Storm, you'd be able to go and get Green Storm and start a battle for first 4, and you also have Green Link, so any greens you take, you will be able to get even more mana from. And while you're generally not going to be casting this, if you do eventually get to the point where you can, just have a little bit of poke damage with a little bit of Fairy Fire as well, to be able to clean up if they end up resummoning or something similar. And then of course the new bounty troop goes into the 4th slot. And as far as the standard max score team, it hasn't really changed. It's just Ogress for the same reason that you always would, just really tanky, mass mana accumulation. Tagraki, just the standard as far as damage sources when it comes to Bounty Hunter. If you're running a 4 times bounty team, he should be on your team every single time. He just has true damage that ends up scaling based on enemy stats, which allows him to do the final battle very well, as well as the battles leading up to it, as his damage always keeps scaling up to the enemy. Not as good as some scaling like Tesla and other things, but you know, still get some scaling, and it's the best thing you have for scaling when it comes to Bounty Hunter in that regard. And Corpse Mirror, just to synergize with the synergy, has a little bit of mana accumulation into some lifesteal. And of course, the new guy that we just showed earlier, that one mold, would just be plopped into a last slot. Even though he's not particularly useful there, of course, you're just using the core of this 3 and the core of this 3 and just having him there purely for all of the points they would end up earning, with this being the lower scoring but pretty much instantly get Bounty Hunter completed if you're just looking to get all rewards, whereas this is more so if you're trying to go for a leaderboard or trying to spend less gems on the event. It might take a little bit longer, but you know, you'd be able to get it done with less gems to be able to go and complete it out. But there's all the teams for the week, all 10 of them, which will be in the pinned comment and description. Anyways, other things we have, Soulforge. I don't believe there's anything good in Soulforge when I peeked earlier. However, of course, we have been going on our dry streak for evil dragons. Let's see. How are we going? How do you check them again? Why do I forget what the evil dragons are? Oh, no. Because it's not evil. I forget what it is. I know, like, the other ones are, like, flower. Why do I forget what the evil dragons are? Can I just type in evil? Please, one of you come up. No! I forget what the thingy is. Fine, I'll go check the thing. It's, I always forget what it is. I think it's kin of. I remember now. I remember. It's kin of. It's kin of. It's Kinno. Kinno! But here we go. Here's all of them. So you're typing Kinno to go get to all of them, which is probably the weirdest one. Because the other ones are really obvious, like Cosmic or Gems or Flowers. This one is Kinno to get to Evil Dragons. Because they're all kin of something. So yeah, we're still trying for that yellow. We are currently, what, 20, 21? How deep are we now? 7, 12, I'm not sure why I did in this order. 17, 21, and now this will be 22. Will we finally get the yellow evil dragon? I believe after this one, we have officially spent more than gem dragons, even though it took us 27 gem dragons to finally get them done. Of course, they were only 500 Dragonite each, not 600. So I believe after this one or next one, we have actually exceeded the cost of how much we spent on gem dragons, which was already absurdly dry. So let's see if we end up getting it here today. In which case, we might need to go cover a video on it this week. I'll definitely mess with it tonight if we get it. As this is basically the strongest thing is the yellow dragon. The weapon is nice, but still like the evil dragon more. The weapon is pretty nice. And the 6-color dragon you get at the end honestly isn't anything too special, at least relative to Stellaryx and Flower Dragon, where, you know, it's not bad, but, you know, compared to what already exists, it's not that great. Anyways, let's go try it. Come on, yellow. Oh, we actually got it. We actually got it. It's over! Okay, that's about equally as dry as we went on gem dragons relative to cost. as this took us 22, but they were 600 each, and Gem Dragons took us 27, which is obviously more, but it was for 500 each. Well, I don't know. Do we go do one battle with it right now? Ooh. Okay, well, we'll save that for a little bit later. But we got one more team to go add. We'll be doing a little video, I guess, dedicated to, I guess, maybe this Friday. But, ooh, okay, that's interesting. You know, I gotta upgrade it now, though. I just can't leave it hanging. We gotta upgrade it and just put it onto the thingy. Don't worry, at the end of this video, we'll get around to him. But as well as the stream tonight. Let's see. Where is he? Why is this in such a weird order? He's all the way at V, so he's like all the way at the end. All right, let me go get a max real quick. Obviously, just orb him. But put him onto a team just so we don't forget to go put him into something later. We'll probably do like a really, really basic one with him, but we gotta go try him out. Of course, the main utility of him being is 4 times Curse Silence. Oh, and obviously, we gotta go get the elite levels. We gotta get that damage in there. I haven't done this to most of the other ones yet, but this one you 100% gotta go do. So we'll go get him fully maxed, and, oh yeah, he's gonna move now. Fine, we'll go find him this way, because I forget the V name that he is. Alright, we'll put him here. Let's see, we'll call him Yellow Evil. And we'll build something for him a little bit later. Not right now, we have a few other things to get to. So, anyways, Soulforge. In other news, so, as far as the Soulforge is concerned, I would say pretty much everything here is pretty skippable. We were just kind of talking about Tina 9000 alternatives earlier. The most recent campaign mythic was kind of similar to it. The one that's literally going on right now that you'll be able to get in like 9 weeks from now is very similar to it. But it is available in Soulforge right now. It is 50% spell reduction, has a decent amount of skull damage, and does a bunch of true damage to 3 random enemies and gain tons of armor. So it's pretty tanky having that armor gain into a high spell reduction. For the most part, this is only ever used if you're using a 4 times mech team or 4 times Adana team. Normally 4 times mech, because if you're using 4 times Adana, you're probably running double Tesla in most situations. So it's mostly used for 4 times mech, which might seem like it's almost never really that useful, but making this hero class pretty strong. You also get Bog Strider, so you can end up going Bog Strider with, not Bog Strider, I mean Bork. You could do the Bork with, both of them are bees, so they're like the same word. But he's that little mech chicken, the Bork, and he ends up doing a bunch of mana accumulation, similar to like Thrall and stuff like that, and Bog Strider technically. But he just does a bunch of mana accumulation based on Destroy. He'll end up feeding into Tina 9000, every other mech on your team. Then you just run some kind of mech weapon, Tina 9000, one other option. That other one option is sometimes even double mech, or double Tina 9000, I mean. So, yeah, it's pretty decent. There's not too many instances where you end up using it, but it's still very strong when you do end up doing it if you just need like a spell reduction related troop on your team like this. Though there are starting to become increasingly more alternatives that you can end up running. So outside of a mech category, you don't tend to use it that often, but absurdly good when using a mech category, as there aren't too many other similar options at this kind of power that this thing has, even though it does end up ultimately losing its turn. I believe it's also the first time that you can specifically Soulforge for Champion of Rot. This guy's relatively recent. He's come out in the last year. So he's been pretty targetable pretty recently, but I believe this is the first ever time he's rotated in Soulforge. He's not particularly relevant though. He's kind of really good with like things like Truffle because he has the boost ratio that works out really solid for him, but he doesn't have auto extra turn, which makes him very situational to ever use. In almost every situation, you're going to get more value just from using Truffle or from using Beatrix or from a similar troop. While it does have very good synergy with Truffle plus him, I would almost always go double Truffle over Truffle plus him, as it's just way too inconsistent to bother using him. So for that reason, he's pretty underwhelming, unfortunately. Not to mention Darkstone already has so many other damage sources, but I guess if you need it this week, if you literally are lacking any and you have the diamonds laying around, just want to get them, I guess you could. However, there's already better damage sources like the green Cosmic Dragon from this location. There's already better damage sources outside the location with the similar mechanic like Truffle. So for the most part, he's kind of obsolete. He's one of the things that's based on a troop, aka Truffle, or lower rarity troop that they end up just making the mythic worse. So if you want a troop like this, just run Truffle. You get it for free just from throwing a bunch of things at the Amethyrex faction. Get a bunch of Chaos Shards there, and you'll end up getting it in a pretty quick amount of time. As far as weapons are concerned, I will, as obligated, always have to check these, because I keep forgetting what the 6 kingdoms are. I can never remember. It's not even that I don't remember. It's just I will always second my guess myself if I don't check every single one every time. But yeah, there's nothing too relevant here if you want to get like one of the exploding weapons for the event. Like I think we showed this one on one of the teams. Otherwise, you're pretty much just running Essence of Evil, which is specifically from 250 wins on the hero class. So You know, you don't need to get that from Soulforge. You can get it from like the Thursday class event or just get 250 wins, which is a more ideal thing. But yeah, you're mostly just getting Darkstone weapons to go and meet the requirement for getting the Kingdom Max. This is one of the 5 Magic Kingdoms, one of the 4 Purple Magic Kingdoms in order to go and get upgraded. So very high priority to end up getting this thing up. So that's one of the main reasons why you would actually run event keys this week. Not necessarily because of the drop table or anything that's really in this week, as far as, you know, what you'd get, as most of the stuff in Darkstone, other than like Thrall, which is already so easy to get, and just some of the high rarity stuff, is pretty underwhelming. A lot of really mid stuff within the kingdom. However, the main reason why you would throw event keys this week is not because you want any particular drop necessarily, but because you're trying to get Darkstone to 5, 10 star, 20 star, 30 star, whatever your current milestone is, whatever you're trying to get to next. Yeah, you could do that. It gives you permanent magic, which works everywhere in the game other than Arena. It is very strong to be going for any of these kingdoms, and this is one of the 5, so highly, highly advise doing it for that. As far as the troops that fall into this category, if you go over to Darkstone and click base rarity, show all, let's go over all the troops that are not in drop table, and then the ones that are relevant that are in drop table. So the things that are not in drop table includes the Troglodyte. This is only from the Seal drop table. As far as other things, the 6 faction troops from All-Seeing Eye are only from throwing Kia shards at the All-Seeing Eye faction. The current raid troop that just came out this week of the which one is it? It's somewhere around here. The current raid troop that just came out of why are you doing not see it? We have it max. How can I not be here? Am I not blind? Wait, I'm trying to look for it in Legend. It's an epic. What am I doing? I wonder why I can't find it. There it is. The Twisted Hag. The Twisted Hag is not in drop table. You have to get this specifically from the raid shop this week. So don't try going an event key for it. Don't try to event key for it. And other things that are not in drop table include the Nebula Dragon. This is from the Green Cosmic Egg drop table. And beyond that, that should be everything then. So as far as things that are in drop table that are worth going for, the Mythics, not so much. All of these are very average, with the best one probably being Possessed King, mostly for his final trait. Works really good in Doomskull related and Uber Doomskull related Skull spam teams, because he could do 2 explodes while taking an extra turn Skull, which just pops and explodes the entire board because of the chain reaction of all the Doomskulls and Uber Doomskulls. But outside that context, he's not really too useful in the current state of the game. He does have the highest amount of transform of any troop at 3 possible transforms, which does half their level every single time. So if you're up against something that's 500, it would go from 500 to 250 to 125 to 67. I forget if it rounds up or down, but 67, 68, somewhere around there. But as far as this thing's viability, it's just too inconsistent. It's only a 20% chance, and you are getting 3, but you can't really depend on that actual landing to really do his ability, and his amount of damage is really low compared to other things, especially when you're comparing it to something from its own kingdom for almost the same mana costs. You're only really doing it for the hopes that it does transform, and almost entirely, if you're using him for any reason, you're using him almost entirely for his final trait. And the other things here just are really underwhelming. This is just weaker Truffle in most situations. This is just weaker Zolgoth in almost every situation. Actually, literally every situation, unless you're restricted out of using Zolgoth. And this used to be good back when Rogue Spider synergized properly with it, but ever since they made Rogue Spider do web gems instead of purple, this thing has been nerfed into the ground due to how purple spawn and everything, so you don't really use her in a 4x rogue team anymore. You still could, but you don't really get the same synergy that you once did, as she does not have immune to web, which is really relevant for that team, because her lack of immunity to web makes her pretty much unusable with something that creates 1 billion web gems per turn. And while she's really good, if you don't lose your turn, you are eventually going to have to lose your turn. So because of that, yeah, the synergy just doesn't really exist in 4x rogue for her anymore, not in the same way that it used to back in the day. So long story short, pretty much every mythic is here to literally just upgrade the kingdom is the bottom line, with the only good mythic not being a drop table being the Nebula Dragon, which I think you saw pretty much on every high rarity team we did this week, just because if you have it, it is by far your best damage source. It's not even close. Your next best, if you don't have it, would be Champion of Rot. So one of the few instances you can end up bringing him out if nothing else, as Champion of Rot would be your Nebula Dragon alternative, as you need it to be able to use green, and he's way better than using, you know, Possessed King for your green damage source due to using Hag as your mana accumulation there. As far as things that you would get that are in drop table that are pretty nice, so they're pretty easy to get whenever, is Thrall. Thrall obviously is a common, so not that hard to get whenever. However, really good mana accumulator, use him throughout the entire game. A little bit weak in early game because he doesn't have that many destroys, but as you get later and later into the game, or using a 4x Darkstone team for the really high magic bonus they would end up getting from some of these other ones earlier. But in any of those situations, he ends up getting a lot of destroy, enough to go destroy the entire board, including in things like Underworld, where you end up getting a ton of extra magic bonuses as well. So in any kind of situation where you can destroy most, if not all of the board, he gains a lot of mana accumulation for only 6 mana, and technically even less because it's purple link into himself. Really good mana accumulator. You probably see me running it on a lot of purple teams, like him plus Leprechaun, stuff like that. Ends up working out really good for mass mana accumulation, even just one of him if you don't have access to other empower options to assist. The other thing that's really good, though, of course, is available for Glory this week, is the new Hag. This is an event key drop table, but you just throw 400 Glory each to get copies of her, so not really much of a need to event key for her. But she is one of the things that is relevant for, let's say, if you happen to not get her much this week, but in like, we'll mention her again for the Darkstone event in like 9 weeks from now, because then she won't be available for Glory, but you know what she will be available for in, similar to now, she'll be in event keys. So if you don't end up getting her max now, definitely make sure to do so in 9 weeks. But if you're watching this now, you're probably already maxing her now, if you end up seeing her. So yeah, definitely make sure to do so. You won't end up needing to do it at a later point, but if you do end up for whatever reason forgetting to this week, yeah, you can do so again in like 9 weeks from now, as well as every future Darkstone event week. But yeah, and everything else is kind of underwhelming here. Almost everything else not mentioned is very, very underwhelming from this kingdom for the most part. So much dead content, but the few things that are good in this kingdom are really, really, really good, but otherwise, not so much. Anyways, so we kind of went over the Guild of Anacor's already earlier, but don't forget to use her for double score, regardless of how upgraded you have her. Though if you do fully max her, she'll have basically effectively 10 times damage against the boss, 5 times from her being maxed, 2 times from her having double magic. Weapon's also pretty good, so if you normally don't buy up to the tier of the weapon, highly advise that you get to at least tier 3, as you might need this for Bless and some kind of future restriction going forward. Definitely make sure to be getting these if you haven't already been. Get at least that tier 3, which I think is like 210 gems. Of course, with the new campaign, don't forget to be doing the new campaign tasks. We do have a ton of them over here. We have to kill Mystic specifically, so you have 10 weeks to go and complete all these here. We also end up getting Green Deed Book, so if you end up needing this, the most noteworthy one to get this up with is if you haven't done the Magic Kingdom of Zolkiri. It is the only thing that isn't purple that ends up utilizing magic, so go use these on Zolkiri if you haven't already gotten a level 30, maxed out Zolkiri Kingdom and everything. Highly advise putting them into there. But beyond that, yeah, just some more Green Deed Books and another thing to go max out a troop. Pretty much the same things that you normally have to do every single campaign, with the only difference being you got to target out Mystics. As far as Mystic locations, there's not really like one kingdom I would say that has like a mega amount. There are a few that have a good handful of them. I think Silverglade has a good handful. This kingdom obviously has a good handful. But there's really not any one kingdom where I would say like, there's like 1.5 billion mythics. I mean, mystics. There's a bunch that are concentrated in a lot of areas. So out of any restriction we've had in recent times, this one you don't really have to worry about if you do it on the final week, as not being able to do it in Darkstone isn't really that big a deal, as there are a good handful of other locations you could end up getting it done with. And there are just already other things that end up counting as mystic that you're going to be naturally killing so much. Most notably, if not mistaken, Beatrix is a mystic. I don't normally remember this as one, but I don't really think of it as one, but it's generally whenever you're in a mystic restriction, you're going to be seeing a ton of these always. I believe it's also a really popular PvP pick because double Beatrix is just so accessible. So we probably even have a mystic in the outer ring. Okay, of course, the 1 week could be relevant. It's not here. Hopefully they'll vote for it next week. But you sometimes see that on the outer ring for PvP as well, so you can get that done just from 1 week from doing PvP in that location. Though you do need to wait for mystic to actually appear in the outer ring, which is decently common, probably like every other week, maybe like every 3rd week. But now that's the actual thing that you got to kill this season, people will probably start voting for it a little bit more, as a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, just run like a double Beatrix quick kill team for it more often than not. It's just a really accessible team that everyone pretty much has access to. You just go throw some Chaos Shards at the Beehive faction and you're good to go. The Deep Hive, somewhere's around there, where is it? The Deep Hive. You just throw a bunch of Chaos Shards here, you end up getting a Beatrix at some point. There it is, you get your Beatrix and you're good to go. Ideally 2 of them for any kind of restriction like that. So you're naturally going to be getting a lot of Mystic kills just naturally throughout normal gameplay, due to the concentration of Beatrixes that are really common on, any PvP team, as well as, just target them out through other means. But that should be pretty easy to do compared to some of the other restrictions we had where you had to go out more out of your way, like Orc and stuff like that. Mystic is pretty easy to just naturally get done just through normal gameplay. Anyways, beyond that, there's one thing to still go over, though we kind of went over it to some degree already. But do not leave this week without maxing this Glory Troop. You need 16 to get it maxed, unless you want to have some more on your team, in which case you can get like a few more just to have a few spare copies, in case you want to run like 2 or 3. You're never going to need more than 1 on a team, though. But yeah, she's really good. As far as what she does, she is a converter a target converter that feeds into herself. She uses green, she feeds green, because of course poison gems are green. Whenever you take a poison gem, you'll poison the entire enemy team. You can also use this to poison allies if you need to try to trigger on HP effects. And she eliminates a bunch of a random stat from her enemy, which could be really good for negating out things like magic from the opposing enemy, as well as attack. And while it might be a little bit inconsistent, the amount of extra turns you can get into looping if you're not frozen on green is very, very, very high. And you're mostly using her for, not necessarily for a poison effect or these poison gems or anything, but mostly for how much random stats you could reduce from the enemy. It is very likely that you could chain her enough times to like half eliminate all the offensive stats from the enemy, which is kind of crazy for like a mid-rarity troop like this. This is better than a lot of mythics that have like a reduce 100-something stats from like all enemies or something similar. Like that sounds strong, but they end their turn and have like absurd high mana costs. But she effectively does that while giving you infinite green mana, and likely like a chain reaction of several extra turns as long as you're not frozen, which is very, very good and stronger than most mythics that have or even legends or any other rarity for that matter, that have a stat reduction troop. She's basically one of the best, if not the best, stat reducing troop in the game now. Better than the original Plaguelord that ended up doing it, as well as, you know, that one Mortal that ended up getting it somewhat recently, as well as just anything in the game. She's probably just the realistic best one to use now. It's not the quickest way to get it done, but with the amount of extra turn value that you get, you're never actually losing your turn if you end up using her correctly. Plus, you're feeding everything on your team that uses green to max mana, or at least, you know, higher, if not necessarily all the way to max. So very, very strong glory troop. So far, I would say the strongest one of the year. Of course, we're only 2 months in, but I would definitely say this is the strongest glory troop of the year so far. Unfortunately, not shinyable. It's the raid troop that ended up getting shinyable, so she'd be really crazy if she got even higher stat reduction combined with 10 mana cost, but she's already great at 12 in the base amount. So yeah, pretty nice. Anyways, guys, I believe that is everything. PP season is still going for a while, right? Yeah, or I believe it is. We just started somewhat recently. Oh yeah, we're only like halfway there. We got plenty of time. So nothing to really mention with that. Actually, there is one thing to mention. I haven't been checking the burning thing on the video as much, though we haven't been getting any good ones. Did we get a good one this week? No. Boo. I'm still waiting for it. I'm still waiting for the Trog Goblin with like Immortal Ossifer, Infernax, and like one other thing. I'm still waiting for it. We still got, how many weeks? We still got like 6 weeks. We still got 6 rolls. We got 6 more chances to get a really good week for synergy. Otherwise, we'll just have to dump it down on something else. But hopefully we get a really good synergy week for it within those 6 weeks. So we'll just have to wait and see. And yeah, currently this week is not one of them. But anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in. Oh, wait, hold. Wait, we're not done yet. Hold. We must do the yellow evil dragon. We'll do a dedicated video for him probably this Friday. And probably in about a month from now, we'll be able to go cover the weapon and mythic, which we'll probably just do in one video. I'm not going to separate that into 2. But we'll do one video in about a month to going over the weapon and mythic, the 6-colored mythic. But for now, let's go mess with this guy and cover a video for him this weekend. So this is the Vizanium. He came in last month with the drop of the evil dragons from the Dragonite. We got really unlucky and it took 22 eggs to go and get this guy. However, he is the only one you need of the evil dragons. I would ideally, if you were trying to just progress through the game, I would go and probably full focus on flower dragons, then do evil dragons only until you get the yellow evil dragon, and then probably go move on to cosmic dragons is likely the order that I would end up doing it in. As far as evil dragons are concerned, the yellow one is pretty much the only one you need. The green one's kind of decent too, but yellow is by far the best of them. It just deals a bunch of damage to all enemies at a very similar high damage as most of these Dragonite dragons do, boosted by yellow gems, and inflicts curse and silence. This is the best silencer in the entire game at the moment. It's not the cheapest silencer, but it comes attached with curse and a really high amount of damage output, while still having extra turn potential. Many things that other silencers that end up doing like stuff like this do not. Plus, it doesn't end up cursing itself like Silent One and similar things, so really, really solid. Ends up having extra turn based on yellows that are on the board. Unfortunately, its ratio is pretty bad, but, you know, still a better chance than nothing. And beyond that, it has a 40% chance that it will end up creating 2 yellow gems into yellow dragon eggs, so that you can dragon gems, so you can end up getting more mana accumulation from them. It doesn't give you any alignment value, but it does give you a little bit more mana accumulation. But its more relevant thing is a 15% chance on top of that to be able to go and resurrect itself with full mana. This thing, when it resurrects with full mana, of course, would immediately be able to go and recurse and silence the entire enemy team. which is kind of crazy. Of course, I could just be stunned off of it, but if you do end up getting that kind of value from it, you basically just get to cast it. It ends up dying. It casts again. Really strong. But obviously, 4 times Curse Silence, perpetually keeping that onto the opposing team, is its main gimmick that ends up having. So how do we want to build this? Are we just going to build this into a general team? I guess we'll just go build it into a quick general mana accumulation team. We'll save the more complicated ones for later. We'll even go bring out the Thrall Leprechaun, as we were mentioning earlier. We'll just get like the bear basics. I kind of want to get something that has like silenced energy with it, though. That or just some damage. Or we could just go Fairy Fire with it too. He's already running Curse, so we could just run like Miss Mother or something. Just to give it a little bit more damage. Because just to make up for the fact that it's not doing like Flower Dragon level of damage. It's really high, but it's not like that high. This also uses pure purple, so we end up getting a little bit extra magic that way too. But let's go double purple banner. Don't need anything too fancy here. What are we not using? Red? I guess we can just minus red real quick. Go whatever gives us a little bit extra value. Probably yellow if we can, or brown. Purple yellow, sure, we'll take that one. And hero class doesn't matter because we're not using hero. Anyways, let's go just try this real quick. Let's see. Let's do it in Pride Land. Seems fine. Explorer. So, of course, the main gimmick of this is not to win quickly. The main gimmick of this troop is to win solidly. You would mostly use this in Guild War-related restrictions, either defensively or offensively, as this is by far its best related area. The only problem for that is the only category that you can use this for is Dragon, with the best layout for that being blue. So in something like green layout, you would never be able to use this defensively anywhere, unfortunately. However, it would offensively cover, you know, Dragon and Karkaroff. So in those kind of situations, you can end up using it for that option. You can also use it just in general related areas where it's really important to win, where you're still allowed to use it, like in PvP if you want, just for general PvP. This is very similar in the category of Rope Dart and other troops that you're putting them on your team to win, not to win quickly. It is purely to make sure that you disable out the entire enemy team of pretty much anything it ends up doing, and then winning that way. Also, we're getting really unlucky, getting absolutely no purple on the board on the team that needs 1 billion purple to function, or at least the starting purple. So really unlucky there. Luckily, we finally got our purple, get it for free. And now, of course, the main gimmick of this thing is with 4 times Curse Silence. Now they cannot do anything. You could even combine this with Elementalist Hero Class and get them afflicted with almost every status effect in the game. You know, have them stunned, have them entangled, have them cursed. Oh, I actually haven't popped this yet. That's funny. I actually did this morning to check it, but it got destroyed immediately, so the pop-up never came up. But yeah, here's also the poison thing. This will fall from the sky for the entirety of the campaign over the next 10 weeks. But these are just poison gems. They'll poison all the enemy troops. It doesn't mention it here, but they should count as green gems as well. I'm not sure why the Luther in the corner doesn't mention it, but these also count as green gems, kind of like how the burning one counts as red, and similar. This one ends up counting as a green gem. I'm not sure why he didn't mention it on the little tooltip, but if we could try to match it real quick. Let's see if I could deliberately try to get it. I wanted to like deliberately take these greens. Of course, he separated it. I'm not sure if I have a way. I want to waste a bunch of turns just to get it down. I want to take these just to show that it does count as a green. I don't think we're going to be able to here. The game's not letting me take it. Oh, that's sad. We'll go, like, Thrall and try to get one. Let's see. Thrall again. We'll keep throwing. Come on, you can do it. Come on, Thrall. Create a poison gem. It's not going to let me take it to show it's a green. It's not going to let me. Okay, we're just going to win. But it does indeed count as a green. But there we go. That's pretty much the whole goal of this dragon. You know what? Just for the fun of it, let's bring it to central PvP. Just to show that it can disable out really well. Where did I put it? Let's go grab it from right over here. And of course, we'll do more teams for it this weekend. But this is just kind of like the test trial team for now. Alright, so, of course, one thing that's really good at is, of course, winning. So I'm about to go lose this battle somehow, probably. But I'm just going to run this. We should be able to win pretty easily as long as we get a cast off. All we have to do is basically cast it and we win. So as long as we can get purple at the starting board, we should be fine. As the only thing kind of holding us back from the previous battle was our lack of purple. If we could just manually take it off the board, that'd be our best option, probably. But otherwise, we'll go for a Leprechaun here and hope we can cascade it. We already got the ability, so we're already good to go. I kind of want to take that mana now just so we have it. And then we can go for the ability here. Doesn't even really matter if we get hit with effects, because even though he has a bunch of mana, he doesn't anymore. Whatever didn't already get killed is now silenced and cursed, so we could apply other status effects. So if this thing didn't have immune to, or if this thing did have immune to Fairy Fire, for example, which it doesn't, but if it did, we'd already have the curse on it, so we'd be able to apply stuff like that. If it had immune to silence, we'd be able to still apply it because of the curse, and then you just do the rest of your damage to go and kill it out, as it is a pretty substantial damage source. You can depend on it as your only damage source. I wouldn't advise doing that. You're probably going to want to have one other troop on your team to offset it. In this case, we're using Miss Mother. However, it can be your sole only damage source if you really had to, if you didn't have a better option, or if your team kind of wanted to have it that way. I would advise having a second, though, when using this thing, just in case, as its damage is while not bad, is not consistent enough to, if it gets like disabled out itself, you're kind of in a problem. Like if we get roped like that, like if that happens. Well, it looks like we're gonna die here from going too slow. Okay, one more time. Rope Dart getting a billion value there, okay. But yeah, it's basically a race of you casting before the enemy kills you, essentially, is what this mythic is. If you could just get it casted before the enemy starts doing anything, that's the main thing that ends up giving all of its value. So we'll just take our purple here, and we should be good to go. That'll get us full mana. We'll now go cast our auto win button. In most situations, obviously there are some things that still have immune to Curse Silence. Most notably, anything that has that invulnerable trait off of things like Immortal, stuff like that. But most things, you know, do not have immune to it. So we can just get it all down onto the opposing team, use our assisting damage source to go kill out the battle. And even if we didn't have another way to follow up with damage, you know, they pretty much completely disabled out, especially if you throw some kind of entangle on the team. There's not much else they can end up throwing out with it. But yeah, looking forward to mess around with this. We'll do that tonight at our normal stream time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on the channel. And we'll go mess with, you know, all the weeklies. But more importantly, see what we could finally do with this Evil Dragon. We're a week late to the party, but we finally got it. And we'll have the weapons and everything and go cover that in like a month. As, of course, we still need to go earn the Dragonite. So we still got a little ways to go before I can show the weapon and the 6-color troop. Though, honestly, the weapon is way better than the 6-color troop. It's probably the first time ever where the weapon is one of the most viable options. It's not as good as the Yellow Dragon, but it's pretty solid. Like, look here. He was about to go in, like, infinite loop off of that thing, but now it doesn't matter. And here we can actually see one instance where the main thing that can kind of counter it, of course, Invulnerable. Invulnerable, of course, does immune to all stats effects, which does include Silence, does include Curse. So, unfortunately, that is one of the things you cannot end up disabling out with it. But, of course, doesn't really matter too much, as everything else on the enemy team ends up getting disabled out. And very few teams run like 3 or 4 invulnerables. They are out there, but you have to compromise your team quite a bit to be able to get a team set up like that, as there's quite a lot of stuff you can't end up running for, most notably your hero, as hero does not have invulnerable. So you'd have to already not run hero. There's a lot of empowers you can't run because no empower has it currently. There's a lot of things you can't run if you're trying to run like a 3 times, 4 times invulnerable team. So at most you generally only have like 2 on the opposing team, maybe 1 if just running an immortal or something. But of course you could just change out your troop and not use it in those situations. But yeah, it's not good for winning quickly necessarily, though it can if you needed to use it as a damage source. But it's mostly meant for winning. Like you basically cast it in an auto win. As long as you can get it down onto the opposing team, you're good to go. So it's very situational when you bring it out. You're mostly looking to bring it out on locations where win rate matters. So for example, let's say this was Dragon Restriction. We might want to go bring it out because if we don't have, let's say we don't have like Flower Dragon or Stellarex, but we still need like that utility. All we have to do to make sure the enemy Flower Dragon or something else on their team doesn't go crazy is we just silence them. We just go and get that down, silence them once, and we're good to go. Like for example here, like right here would be a good area where we might want to go and incorporate it if you're not going like a Flower Dragon Rush team, which you probably still would be doing. Like the standard team that you would end up using, for example, for this restriction, might as well make it now since we'll need it later in the week anyways. But the standard team that you would run for something like this is this setup right here, where you end up running this, you end up running Wand of Stars, and you're pretty much good to go there. And end up running something like this, and then just run it with like Dragon Guard or something similar. But, of course, with this, we could end up replacing out one of our 2 mana accumulators and end up going down a Evil Dragon route. As since this is Dragon Restriction, we're already going really yellow heavy. We could get rid of something. Of course, I think the first thing that you would get rid of if you were to get rid of something here, though you do get rid of Yellowstorm, unfortunately, is Essentia. You still get to keep 20% mana start instead of 50, which is a little bit less, but you do have the Empower, you do Wand of Stars, you do have other things that naturally get your mana accumulation, and then you would go put the Evil Dragon in, you would go put this thing in, and then boom. You would now have a way that if you do go a little bit slower, you would be able to go and silence them out. And if you think you'll go a lot slower, you could even put it in front of your Flower Dragon or primary damage source in order to get the damage out a little bit quicker. So an instance like this is where would be one of the other really big use cases for it, where you basically, instead of racing the enemy's Flower Dragon or the enemy's Stellarex, you simply just go get this casted once. I could even run it in first off if you really wanted to, but of course we're putting Wand of Stars there just to get a mana rolling. But we're just running it like this in order to go and still be able to get blessed and everything. And then once you get blessed and protected from all their freezes and whatever else, if you're running elementals, you would then end up getting your 4 times Silence Curse, and you just win off of obviously Flower Dragon or whatever you have as your primary damage source. So you can end up replacing out some of your mana start for, you know, basically the ability to just completely disable out the opposing team. So, yeah, this is another use case you can end up doing for it, and is applicable for this week as well, at least on PC Mobile, because I'm pretty sure every single one recruits different things for the Outer Circle for every platform. I would assume so. That'd be weird if it didn't. I think some people mentioned Soulforge is now aligned, but I'm pretty sure the Outer Ring is still separate for every platform, since it has to be voted upon on the platform. But at least PC Mobile is Dragon and Outer this week, so yeah, something you could also end up running for it, as well as Dragon for Guild War related battles and stuff like that, where if you get that down, the enemy team is probably going to guarantee lose based on a restriction. Like if you had to do like a random restriction, like I don't know, monster, let's say it's a monster Guild War, and you end up getting 4 times Curse Silence off that dragon, you got a big problem if like this is the dragon team you're up against in like blue layout or something. Except Wand of Stars, you would have to replace that for Essence of Evil or something, but because you can't use Wand of Stars defensively. Offensively you can, defensively you can't. So if you were to set like a blue Guild War defend team for the, you know, the Guild War dragon one, it would basically just be this, but with Essence of Evil and First Law or something similar. And then the second you get this down, or the Essence of Evil in a good location, you basically just auto-win, as a lot of restrictions just would not have a good way of combating it on a given week. Like obviously Monster and other similar ones would just have no way of dealing with it in that situation. So you get one cast of that and you basically auto-win, or, you know, auto-lose inversely. So it's really good for defend teams in that kind of regard, and one of the other main use cases for it. Good at winning, not good at winning quickly. But it's consistent at winning in like that rope dart, kind of like infinite loop kind of category. But anyways, guys, that is officially now everything for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. As we mentioned, we'll be streaming tonight on the channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we always do on Mondays. Just going over all the weekly stuff, messing with the raid events, and of course, messing with the new Yellow Evil Dragon a little bit more than what we did now. And we'll have a video probably going up on Friday of whatever teams we end up messing with, just to show us a couple of them if you ever want to copy paste them for, you know, like blue, or, you know, for Dragon Guild War Defend, or for Dragon PvP, or for whatever other category we end up making for it, as well as early game and all that. So I'll make up several teams for it, and yeah, it's pretty nice. It's the main reward that we end up getting the other month from the event. So, or, you know, from the Dragonite Dragons coming out, and we finally got it. And in a month, we'll go over the weapon and Mythic in one video. Oh, also, I forgot to mention it here. We have this pet right over here. This was the, oh, well, this one's not the relevant one, although I do need to go do it as soon as I click end record. However, don't forget that the, it's not showing here because I have one active, but don't forget this Wednesday, actually I can bring up the calendar right here. This Wednesday is the Lunar New Year horse. Do not forget to go grab this thing. It is available on the 18th, this Wednesday, for the 24-hour period. Of course, last Wednesday we ended up getting the Valentine's Day 2026 pet, but this week is the Wednesday for the 2026 Lunar New Year pet. And while these things are easier than ever to get after the fact, it is still highly advised to get them during, as it could take potentially months for it to rotate, or, you know, for your guild to end up finding it with all the things that are in drop table. So do make sure to go and get it this Wednesday, just so you don't have to worry about it, just for completion's sake. Of course, it's purely cosmetic and everything, but don't forget that 24-hour period will be available this Wednesday. But anyways, guys, hope you all have a wonderful week, wonderful President's Day, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.